The air at the table felt dense, heavier than usual. Plates were arranged, candles flickered, but something had already shifted. I noticed it, before anyone spoke, the subtle rearrangement of chairs. A slight hesitation in my mother's hand as she gestured toward the empty spot, where my chair should have been. I paused, standing at the edge of the room, and let the moment stretch. There's no room for disappointments. My mother said, calm but cutting, as though the words were just another item on the Thanksgiving menu. I stared at her, trying to measure the weight of those words, trying to gauge if they were meant for me or for some invisible audience. I had grown accustomed to this rhythm: small omissions, quiet dismissals, a perpetual sense of being slightly out of place. Even in my own family, I sat down, nowhere in particular, or rather, I didn't sit at all. The room shifted around me, but I stayed still, noticing the subtle things. My father's fork paused mid-air, my aunt's glance flickering, almost shameful, before she looked away. I felt the familiar mix of anger and hurt, the ache of recognition that this wasn't sudden. It had been building, layer by layer, for years. Memories surfaced, sharp and fleeting. My 10th birthday. A quiet acknowledgement in passing. Graduation, achievements unnoticed, conversations I had to fight to enter. Every subtle slight was now a pattern, and the pattern was clear. I realized that confrontation wouldn't feel right, not today. Not like this. Restraint felt more honest, more controlled. I reached into my bag and pulled out a crisp envelope, heavy with weight I hadn't felt in years. My hand lingered over it as I stepped forward, deliberately slow, deliberately silent. I placed it gently on my father's plate. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said, my voice calm, measured. "I finally know why you hate me." Silence fell like a thick cloth over the table. No one moved. Forks hovered, breaths caught. I walked away without turning back, leaving them to the envelope and the quiet I had carried with me all these years. I found a quiet corner outside, letting the cold air settle against my skin, letting the absence of their approval finally feel like freedom. There was no triumph, no celebration. Just the acknowledgement that I could exist without their validation. Inside, I knew someone would open it. The envelope contained years of careful documentation, letters I had written, drafts of grievances never sent, receipts of efforts they had ignored, milestones uncelebrated. It wasn't meant to punish, it was evidence of reality. A mirror held up quietly to their neglect. The shift was subtle but undeniable. My uncle, the family elder, opened the envelope, his face tightening with understanding. Words were exchanged in low tones, glances ricocheted around the room, the tension thickening. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. My absence amplified my presence. Power had shifted, not violently, not dramatically, but quietly, and it was unmistakable. I lingered in the cold until I felt my pulse slow. The autumn light cut across the yard in lines of amber and gold. My dignity had returned, not with vengeance, but with measured assertion. I had walked away, yes, but in doing so, I had reclaimed a part of myself they could not touch. I wondered how long it would take for them to speak, to adjust, to recognize the subtle change in perception. I didn't need an answer. For the first time, I realized that validation, real validation, was not something they could give or take away. It was mine to hold. The room inside remained unsettled. Quiet conversations, shifting glances, the low hum of unease that follows revelation. They were left to wrestle with the envelope, with the truth of their own neglect. I was left to wrestle with the calm that had finally arrived, the quiet victory of simply existing on my own terms. I walked home slowly, the crunch of leaves beneath my shoes marking each step of reclamation. The holiday continued inside, the family still at the table, but their eyes had changed, if only slightly. I felt no rush to return. I felt no need to explain. I simply felt myself, complete, separate, quietly undeniable. The envelope remained a pivot, a fulcrum for reflection. Nothing had been repaired, nothing fully broken. The air was thick with possibility, with consequence, with the unspoken understanding that things would never quite be the same. And that was enough. Silence had done more than words ever could.